Hi, everybody.
I like it that everybody waves.
Yeah, and
Hi, everyone.
everybody's like equally framed, kind of like full face in the frame, you know? That's too.
Yeah,
Michelle, do you want to kick this off?
I do, and I'm going to kick it off by kicking it to Miss Sun and Faith, who are going to pick it up. And I just want to thank you, President Adams. Thank you for coming. We're grateful to you, and thank you so much for saying that you were really looking forward to this. And then I'll let you make your remarks about how you read all the excerpts. So Miss Sun, and let me introduce you. I don't know if you've met Miss Sun, President Adams. Miss Sun is in, Miss Sun Doko is in English, and you may know her because you're on the you're on one of the equity seminars, aren't you, with Jason? I thought you were coordinating that. Is that true?
You muted, Miss.
Miss Sun, you're on mute.
Yeah, we did a Africana Studies workshop this semester. Jason, myself, and Paul Fess, we facilitated it. Yep.
And Faith, this is Faith Armstrong from Health Science.
Hi, from Health Sciences Nursing. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you, President Adams, for joining us and for accepting the invite of Michelle and Company dinner online party. Yeah, so we had such a wonderful discussion in my group. And I'm sure everybody had the same engaging discussion, right? So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna kind of have one person from each group just to speak on what was discussed. And then later on, we're gonna have President Adams kind of join in the conversation, right? But it's gonna be a fluent, free conversation, you know, don't hold back anything, make it be light, just like you have in a glass of coffee or a glass of wine, and just relax, okay? So would someone want to go in our group that we had first? Or would somebody else want to join?
I beg your pardon, Faith, just quickly, how many breakout groups were there?
I think we had 5.
So I can keep track. Okay.
President Adams, do not put me on the spot like this.
Oh, okay? Forgive me. It doesn't matter.
President Adams.
It was four
okay.
breakout groups.
Okay.
President Adams, is there something you'd like to say in advance
Yeah.
of folks talking? Would you, I know you read the excerpts. Is there something you wanted to say?
Well, I just very briefly to share with you, while you were finishing up in the breakout groups and I joined Michelle and Thomas, we were just catching up. And I said to them something I should say to all of you, which is that I've really been looking forward to this. Selfish. It's a really joyful break from the other things I've been working on the last few weeks. And it's yeah, so that's always good in that sort of, you know, I guess it's a little bit of a break from you if you're trying to do grading and finish up all of your work. And I also recognize that means I know you're really busy, of course, this time of the semester. And so you're taking time away from that. So I appreciate you're putting time into this and sharing with these observations with me now. But again, I've been looking forward to it because it's just a thing I really like to be able to do that's different from my day-to-day and just spending time with faculty and learning, in this case, from your experiences of teaching during COVID. But also, again, he said selfishly, I really enjoyed the session that we had back in the fall semester after the publication of these amazing, I'll call them essays, but they were, you know, writings of different lengths that many of you did. There were these very deep, often very personal reflections of teaching during the pandemic, right? And so that's kind of not lost on me that I think at that time we said, hey, can we get together at the end of the year and sort of see. So I've also been curious, I guess this is my second and final point, to see how, if this has indeed happened, but if in any of your situations, you know, your reflections are somewhat modified by experiences from, you know, between then and now, because it's been a second semester of, well, really 2.5 semesters, but since the writing. And so I thought that'd be interesting too, is kind of loop back and say, are there new observations? Are there modified observations? Are there new discoveries compared to what you felt in the fall. So for those and those reasons, and just the fact that I'd like to get to, I mean, I am comfortable. I'm looking at the screen and I have met most of you. And so that's nice to know as well. 10 months in the job, I want to try to get to know as many of our great faculty as I can. It's been hard. I haven't met any, I met only a handful, not even a handful of you personally. I always joke, Paul and I joke that I've never met the provost of LaGuardia Community College personally, which isn't totally true because I came to LaGuardia before I worked here and I knew Paul from before, but I haven't met him in this capacity. Anyway, so the point is to say that I've been really looking forward to this, and I thank you for taking the time this afternoon to do it because I know you're really busy right now. Back to you, Faith.
Okay, thank you, President Adams. So anyone want to start? Which group wants to go first and just speak on what was discussed? What were the themes that showed up, that emerged for the conversations?
I'll start off if that's okay.
Okay.
Because I think our discussion was a bit broad.
Okay.
And that was the fact that about 10 years ago, or maybe longer, we started an initiative at LaGuardia to bring on more online classes. Online teaching and learning was just becoming more and more popular. Students were asking for it and whatnot. We had committees and whatnot. We put together policies, and we were kind of building this up. We had some data, research and whatnot for a couple of years. And then CUNY took over the whole online initiative, and it became more about university, and the initiative was university-based, and it sort of trickled away, right? And the policies weren't really followed, and things sort of just, everybody was doing their own thing. It became more from the perspective of the department, right? What the department wanted to do. And it worked for some, and others had challenges with it. Now, this happened, okay, and we were all pretty much forced in 2 weeks' time to prepare to teach online. And again, some of us had wonderful experiences, and obviously others who didn't have experience teaching online were challenged. So we are definitely dealing with a lot of fatigue and whatnot among faculty and students, okay? But for us, or for me personally, it was always about the student experience. And I think what we've seen was a lot of fragmentation from the experience of the student. Even though we all have our own styles in terms of the way we teach, the technology that was coming to students from the experience of students was just completely overwhelming and draining. So I'm hoping that as we get back to whatever the new normal is, that we can again begin the important discussion of, creating this experience that's more extremely positive for students, and maybe developing more stringent policies when it comes to online teaching and learning. Now, I think, and this is my personal opinion, that we need to get back to the classroom. I want to be back to the classroom because, as a teacher, Patricia said this earlier in our discussion, that our personality in this modality is going through technology, right? And it's not the same when you're in a face-to-face classroom, okay? Because it's just not about listening to my voice, it's also about being part of a community and a group called a classroom, right? And the experience is pretty much the same in terms of the environment that we provide for students. However, what we've done in the last, 2 semesters and whatnot, again, was very fragmented and I think draining for students and faculty. So I think that we just have to come together, come back to the classroom. I don't think online teaching and learning should go away. I think we should definitely continue to have online classes, but I think we need to change how we do them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, that's about it.
If you could introduce yourself and tell me which department.
Thanks,
you're
Santa.
from. I didn't get you.
Yes, I'm Santo Trapani. I'm a faculty member with Business and Technology. Sorry about that. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Santa. That was really helpful.
Yes. Who else wants to go on?
I don't mind going next.
Okay, thank you, Nathan.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the group that I was in had Professor Garrison Fletcher as well as—
Just introduce yourself, Nathan. I'm sorry.
Okay, absolutely, yes. So I am Nathan Ozena, and mathematics, engineering, computer science department on the engineering side. I'm the assistant professor. So our group was Professor Garrison Fletcher and Professor Alberts, and we spoke a lot about the difference in experiences that we all had. I said that to me it kind of felt like a marathon where it starts
Yes.
a little bit, sluggish, then you hit your stride and you start really zooming ahead. And then close to the end, you start to kind of lag again and you just want the thing to kind of be over with. But then, my group members also stated that, and so from that perspective, yes, for me, there wasn't much of a change. But once my group members brought that in, I could agree that that is indeed the case. We also spoke about the differences and the benefits that both asynchronous as well as synchronous learning modes had. Um, Professor Garrison Fletcher specifically said that discussion boards and the student interaction during the asynchronous learning was really, really surprising and great. Let's see what else I have jotted down over here. Let's see, although for, oh yeah, also we spoke about how the necessity for certain STEM courses to be in person is related to the idea that hands-on learning kind of drives home the concepts of certain courses.
Yeah.
So, for example, I have classes where I teach where students have to, build motors or build generators, and this is reality. This is what they do in my class, right? Or
Wow.
build digital clocks. That is a lot different doing in person than going online and using an emulator or a simulator to do the same thing. It doesn't drive home the same message,
Yes.
So those are some of the things that came up. Forgive me if I missed anything during that spiel,
Did
guys.
Nathan miss anything?
You guys can let me know. Yes.
Yeah, so I can relate with the simulation, Nathan, because with us in health sciences, particularly for nursing, when we teach lab or hands-on, there are certain things it's so difficult to teach online. This is something we have to take to the lab or in clinicals. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, some of our students were not able to have a clinical rotation. And even as we were going through the semester, and I was doing the practicums, we noticed how weak these students were as opposed to the other students who had the clinical experience. And, unfortunately, we just couldn't do anything about it. So definitely with the simulation is clearly just not enough, for what we do. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, that's something we're gonna have to try to address and try to fix in the fall. At least that's my hope, right? Yeah, our hope. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. I know with our group, it was pretty engaging. And so if Ryan wouldn't mind just talking and making some talking points that we discussed in our group, it was pretty much exciting.
And Faith, you can jump in too. One person doesn't have to represent all the
So
voices.
we will.
Yeah.
We'll all will jump in, right, Thomas? Okay.
Yeah, everybody should jump.
Hello, President Adams. My name is Ryan Mann Hamilton. I'm professor of anthropology in the social science department. The gist of our conversation really started around technology and sort of access to resources. So we really had a conversation around, again, the difficulties of the pandemic, obviously, online and such. I mean, just for a moment, I'll say it has been a difficult year, but it's also been a very rewarding year in multiple ways. But what I've learned, at least, and I think that perhaps all of us, and I'll speak in a better way, is flexibility is the important part of this year, right? And the lessons that we've learned, I think. But again, we talked about available resources in terms of technology. Some students having access to certain technologies, other students working on their phones, right? The lack of access of not just technology itself, but internet access itself and different bandwidths and such, right? So even students trying to participate and getting cut off in the process. And likewise for myself, I've been teaching for the last year. So I have issues with internet here. And so that makes it, of course, much more difficult to learning experience. We also talked about problems, for example, with technology in general, LaGuardia technology, perhaps with tuning technology. Many students just having issues with Blackboard and their own emails. I know as faculty, we're limited in the amount of storage we have in our emails, and of course, it's all digital and online, so we have to have more capacity rather than less. But there's a conversation around language, right? So many of our students are from so many different countries. So as we gather in a virtual world and having all those technological difficulties, right, it compounds that difficulty as well in the classroom. So just as a faculty having to repeat a lot, right? And making sure that people are clear on certain things, and then still halfway through the class, they'll come back and ask the same question. Again, it's not because they're not paying attention, because of certain issues. And then the conversation sort of shifted to whether we come back in person or not, which I think that we all agree that there has to be some type of in-person learning, right? But for example, what do we do in the classroom when literally we're masked, right? At inclusion with our students themselves and second language issues, right? And then the conversation sort of ended with two thoughts. One was sort of and I say inconsistency in terms of the learning curve, right? Younger versus older faculty who are able to access certain technologies, but also the students themselves who have to adjust to, right, the inconsistency. For example, I use Zoom, someone else uses Google Groups, someone else Blackboard Collaborate, someone else uses the other one, and they have to learn all those things. And so many of us have the experience of teaching where we're muted, right? And this is us, we're teaching. I can only imagine the students themselves and some of the difficulties that they're facing as they're in their homes and sharing a space as well. And then last was or at least not lastly, because anyone else can chime in, but what I wrote down was accountability, right?
Big one.
We have a lot of resources that are available to students, and students sometimes reach out for those resources, but they don't get an adequate response, right? Or the response a long time to happen. And so I've had students who literally say, I contacted Blackboard about my email at the beginning of the semester, and it took 3 months for them to get access to their Blackboard. Of course, they're missing out not just on my class, but on every other class that actually uses Blackboard in some form, right? So there's something that, and I'll be honest in saying it, sometimes, at LaGuardia, we have to literally copy 5 people to get a response to something.
Right.
Get a response. And so that, again, as a faculty member, that's frustrating, but I can only imagine as a student how frustrating it might be when you're trying to get access to the tools that you need to learn and you cannot get them.
Thank you, Ryan. I know Ryan was going in and out, so I hope you guys kind of heard him, right? But the point that he was trying to bring upon was accountability and access. And that was really important, that students were not, faculty apparently were not responding to students' emails, or it took a while for them to get responses. And so that's something we're going to have to sort of keep in mind, because the students are so frustrated as it is. And when they cannot get some form of communication, then that's an issue. And so we have to try to get that resolved, right? And even Estefani, which she was not supposed to speak, but I had her chime in. Sorry, Michelle. But she spoke about something that was extremely important. And that was important for us, is communication. Right? Communication is so huge, especially with nursing. That's a big thing. So when she mentioned communication, I was like, yes. So communication is extremely important, right? And so what she was talking about was students would request for a computer or laptop or whatever, right? But they would not get a follow-up. And then students are waiting half of the semester before they even get a laptop, right? I think that's unacceptable. I think there have to be some form of communication where we have to follow up. We have to find out what's the process. If we request a laptop for a student, okay, as faculty and as students, is the language clear enough? What's the instructions? What's the format? What's the process? And I think there is a gap here and there's some kind of lacking. So I think that's important. Request for follow-up is important, right? And what's the process? What do students need when they need certain sort of supplies and so forth, right? Because I know it happened when a student, half of the semester, and that person did not have a laptop. And that's a story that I'm hearing. And I think we're gonna have to find a way to resolve that. Yes, Patricia, yes.